Hey everybody, welcome back. Just wanted to give a brief update. I live in Arizona, but I'm from Chicago originally, been out here 7 years. Still a Chicago sports fan, and I wanted to give a update on my Chicago sports news. I'm not a baseball fan at all. I don't watch baseball except for like if the White Sox or Cubs were in the World Series, I'd watch it. Other than that, I don't really give two shits about it. Boring for the most part. Yeah, Cubs had a decent year and didn't make the playoff. Got cut from the wild card. Didn't really have much of a chance. Would have gone that far anyway. So White Sox actually are setting like the worst record ever in baseball. I think they're 30. I think they got to win like the next. I think they got 4 games left. They got to win 3 out of the next 4 games. Otherwise, they risk having the worst record ever in baseball. I think in 1962. New York Mets were like 40 and 120, whereas the White Sox right now, they've won 38 games, lost 120, so they're definitely skating on thin ice as being one of the worst teams ever in baseball. But Chicago Bears are 1-2 so far. They're actually lucky to be 1-2. They very, very easily could be 0-3. First game they played, they won, but they were down 17-0 to the Tennessee Titans and came back to win it 24-17. They got Caleb Williams, number 1 pick, a new quarterback who was number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So we'll see. He's looked pretty impressive so far, but one of the problems, he doesn't have protection. One of the problems the Bears have is that they just don't have an offensive line to protect their quarterback. It's been an issue for the last 3, 4, or 5 years. So we'll see. The season's still young. They're definitely not a Super Bowl caliber team just yet. But, we'll see what happens the rest of the season. The season is still very young. Bears haven't beaten the Packers for 6 years since 2018, but they're expected to dominate the Packers this year in the 2 games they play them. So we'll see what happens. And Derrick Rose officially announced his retirement from the NBA. He played last year for the Memphis Grizzlies, and just the other day they waived him. I was kind of hoping there's still some time left. I was hoping maybe the Bulls would sign him so he could end his career with the Chicago Bulls, but he decided to retire. Played first 7 years with the Chicago Bulls, and then he had a number of stints with other teams, 2 stints with New York Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Minnesota Timberwolves, Detroit Pistons, and most recently in Memphis Grizzlies. But yeah, he was number 1 pick in the 2008 NBA draft. He was 20 years old. He had 2 years, was it 1 year, 2 years of college he had. University of Memphis, and he was the youngest ever. And it was really a shame his career. He looked like he wasn't Jordan, but he looked like he could have been pretty close. He reached the first like 3, 4 years he was in the NBA before his career was plagued by injuries. Tons of injuries he had. He was youngest MVP ever at only 22 years old back in 2011, and led the Bulls. It was the farthest they'd ever gone since the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen era. He led them to the Eastern Conference Finals. They lost to the eventual champion, Miami Heat. In 2009, he was the youngest, or he was the Rookie of the Year. And even though they lost in the first round, Boston Celtics had won the NBA championship in 2008, but it was a thrilling series. They lost, but him and the rest of the Chicago Bulls, they took the Boston Celtics, defending NBA champions, to a seventh game, which they lost. But it was a thrill of a series. I think there was like 11 overtime plays, at least like I know there was at least 1 game that went at triple overtime, but there was like 11 overtime periods in that series. It was a thriller, very physical, even though they lost. Definitely a shame. Yeah, Derrick Rose, he did tear his ACL in 2012, the first game of the playoffs that year. It was really a shame. He was supposed to be, he got picked to be in the Olympics, and he never got to see that. And his career was just kind of played. He did show signs of his former self in 2018, a career high when the 1 year he played with Minnesota Timberwolves. He did have a 50-point game. Yeah, occasionally he did show signs of his former self, but yeah, he wasn't able. He eventually became a bench player, wasn't a starter anymore, and just couldn't, just due to all of his injuries, one after another, and he was just wasn't able to play in too many games throughout all the rest of the seasons he played. I think the first 3 years he was in the NBA, he played almost every game, but I think the year that he got hurt, even during the regular season, he only played like half the games. He had a number of injuries even before the ACL tear, and it's very shame. So he sat out the whole next season, and then he came back, and I think early in the, I think it was like the 2014, 2015 season, he tore his meniscus. So then he was out for the whole rest of that season. It was just one thing after, yeah, he had so many injuries. I can't even keep track of them all, can't remember them all. It's a shame. He was a good guy, and it was the best I'd seen since the Michael Jordan era. He, well, definitely wasn't Jordan. I'd say he was probably in the same, he had the potential to be in this, at least the first 3-4 years he was in the NBA. He definitely had the potential to be a Scottie Pippen, even though it was different positions, but yeah, he had potential to be that kind of player. It's a shame he never won a championship, and shame he didn't retire as a Bull. He spent most of his career with the Bulls, from 2008 to 2016, 8 years. I'm hoping, though, we'll see what happens. He was number one pick in the 2008 NBA draft, and that was his number. He chose number 1, so I'm hoping the Bulls will retire his number. We'll see what happens. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, and I hope he sure deserves to be in the Hall of Fame someday. We'll see what happens, but I sure hope so. Hope he does. Definitely deserves it. So, yeah, I think that's all I got to say about. And then, we'll see what happens to the Bulls this year. One last thing: Lonzo Ball he's been kind of played by. He blew out his knee in January 2022. He hasn't played since then. We'll see what happens. He's still pretty young, 25, 26, I think he is. He's coming back to the Bulls this year. And, we'll see. They've done pretty well the last 2 years. I'm hoping when now they get him back, they'll be better this year. And there's been a lot of talk about, it looks like Zach LaVine is coming back, but it looks like they've been talking about trading him for forever. But they signed him to a big contract. I guess they can't find anybody that's willing to buy out his contract, but I definitely think they need him since they don't have DeMar DeRozan anymore. And DeMar DeRozan, they traded him last year to the Sacramento Kings. So without DeMar DeRozan, I think they definitely need LaVine, veteran leadership. So we'll see what happens. That's all I got to say about Chicago sports right now. Rambled on enough about it, and football's still young. Season's still young. Basketball's starting up pretty soon, the preseason, so and the regular season will be underway. So that's all I have to say about that. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all real soon with another great video. Have a great weekend coming up, everybody. Talk to you all soon. Bye.